Hi, welcome back to the Scorecard. Now, it's been a couple weeks since my last episode, and I know that I said that I would be uploading every week, and that was stupid of me to, promise something like that to y'all, because I can't make that sort of commitment. I didn't really think through that college is always absolute mayhem week to week, and some weeks are a lot busier than others. So I'm going to try and upload as much as I can, but I'm not going to make any promises on how often I upload. That's not fair to anyone. It's not fair to me. It's not fair to you. So I'm going to just be doing what I'm doing when I can do it. And I like doing it, but, I can't do it every week. So anyways, this episode, I wanted to give you a little story time. Basically, what happened, obviously, if you know me, I go to NC State, and I'm a student there and a big football fan. And if you know anything about NC State football recently, we beat Clemson, who was the number 9 team in the nation, ended up storming the field. It was absolutely insane. It was probably the best football game of my life. So I wanted to share with y'all the whole story behind that. And I actually almost didn't go because there was something else that conflicted with it, and it was a really hard decision, but at the last second, I said, no, I can't miss the Clemson game. And there were other things that kept me in Raleigh too, but I might have had to been out of town during the game, but I ended up voting against it. So I stayed for the game, but the story really starts on Friday. And Friday afternoon was a church event that I went to, and it was an overnight event at a camp about 30 minutes away from campus. I ended up staying up until 4 a.m. the night before the game, and I played basketball until 2 a.m, and then I went and ate cookout, and then came back to the camp and almost fell asleep in the parking lot, but stayed up until 4 a.m. at that point. So I got up at 7:30 the next morning, so I'm running on 3.5 hours of sleep at this point. It was basically all gas, no breaks from there. As soon as I wake up at 7:30, wake up, go to a little worship service, do a little Bible study, and then we're basically free to go at that point. So I grabbed some Chick-fil-A that they were handing out, and then I book it to my friend's car, who was driving us all to the game, me and 5 of our other friends. So there were 6 of us in total. Like I said, it was about 30 minutes away from campus, and then we also had to make a couple pit stops, and this is at probably about 11:30 at this point, and we're trying to get there as early as possible. Kickoff is at 3, but we want to be on the front row. So we're kind of freaking out at this point. We ended up having one person ride in the trunk of the car because we didn't have an extra car to go. We only had one parking pass for all of us. So we had one person ride in the trunk. We were all packed in there. Once we got there, we just got out, loaded a few Gatorades and waters into a plastic bag, and then brought another bag full of paint, and then just sprinted to the stadium. And, we almost ran into people, just running through people's cornhole sets and almost bumping into all these drunk people. But we ended up getting there. There were maybe like 20 other people already in line ahead of us, but that was okay because the student section was wide enough where we would still be on the front row, assuming we keep our spot. That was a lot harder than it needed to be, but we ended up kind of figuring it out. So I'll start talking about that. While we were in line, we kind of stepped off to the side a little bit to paint up because, we don't want to get paint on other people. So we stepped off to the side to paint a little bit, and that takes about half an hour to get that done. And then people started trickling in as we were just off to the side just a little bit. We were still holding our spot, but people, trickled in front of us and acted like they had been there before we were, while we're, half naked with paint all over ourselves. But we were also missing a letter because one person that we thought was gonna be painting up decided not to for a multitude of reasons that I still don't fully understand, but I'm not gonna talk about that. So we were short a letter. We were spelling out who's DJ, because DJ is their quarterback. I don't know how to pronounce his last name, so I'm not even gonna try it, but DJ was Clemson's quarterback that we were making fun of, but we didn't have a question mark for the question, so we were looking around, scrambling, trying to find people. We're literally just asking strangers at this point. And then this one guy that maybe 2 of the people in our group kind of knew but still didn't know that well, they were like, hey man, you want to paint up your chest? And he was like, sure. It just out of nowhere, like literally last minute. This was maybe like 30 minutes before they opened the gates, and we paint them up real quick and we write the question mark on them, and we were set and ready to go. But at this point there were probably close to 100 people in front of us, so we basically had to shove our ways back to the front. And when someone would leave to throw something away, or when they'd move out of the way to let the marching band go through the gate, we would kind of have to finesse our way through to the front. And we were able to get pretty close to the front, but not at the very front, and that was okay. But like literally 2 minutes before, maybe not 2 minutes, maybe like 10 minutes before they opened the gates, I end up with a plate of nachos in my hands, which isn't that bad. I couldn't throw it away, and I couldn't hand it off to someone else because no one else wanted these crusty nachos that I didn't even know where they came from. So I'm just holding this plate of old nachos in my hands, and I don't know what to do with it, and I have to still somehow get my wallet out of my pocket and then pull out my student ID to show the people. And by the time I realized this is 2 minutes before they open the gates, and people are already starting to push me towards the front, and it was extremely stressful. I almost dropped everything. I almost lost my debit card. It was way more complicated than it needed to be, but I ended up, barely getting out my student ID and showing the person. And then when I was scanning the little QR code for my ticket, it didn't work with one guy. So then I moved over to the other guy and had him scan it. And then I just sprinted through the gate and didn't even realize that I needed a wristband for the student section. So I sprint to the gate, almost lose my shoe. I actually did lose my shoe, and I had to put it back on. And then I ran to the stadium, realized, oh crap, I don't have my wristband to get into the actual stadium. I was just on the concourse. And then I sprint back, get the wristband. The whole entire group is ahead of me at this point. And then I get the wristband, go back into the stadium. One of the aisles is just completely packed and filled. I'm like, okay, I can't do that. And then I go to the next one, and it's like empty, thank God. And then I sprint down there. I'm literally hopping over. I'm not even using the stairs. I'm just hopping over the bleachers, like 2 at a time, going as fast as I can. And then I get down there, I'm out of breath. My shoe is like about to fall off again. And then I realize, oh crap, we're not even on the front row. The guys that were ahead of me couldn't even get on the front row. Basically, we were screwed. There were people in front of us that weren't even painted up that were ahead of us, and they weren't budging. Like, we were asking them, like, hey, do you think you can, move back 1 row? It won't change your view a bit, but we need to be on the front row because we literally have our chest painted so that people can see us. And they weren't budging. So we just stood up on the bleachers right behind them, and thank goodness most of us were like pretty tall where you could still see the stuff that we had written out. And we got on TV a couple times, which was really cool. But it definitely was a bummer that we weren't on the front row. And there was actually another group that was painted up, and they couldn't even get on the front row either for the longest time. There were like 20 people in their group, but they were able to eventually get it. But that was like maybe like 2 minutes until kickoff that they were able to get everyone back up onto the front line. And so this is just crazy town now. So we're all packed in there. It's about as loud as I've ever heard Carter Finley Stadium. And I've been going to games my whole life. I mean, if you haven't heard already, my voice is gone. I was yelling that loud the whole entire game. And it ends up going into double overtime, and they start storming the field when we win the game, because it's a double overtime game against a top 10 team in the nation that we haven't beaten in almost 10 years. So we storm the field, but I don't know if you could tell this from TV or if you've ever been in Carter Finley Stadium. On the sidelines, it's like a 10-foot drop. It's not like it's literally like if you're jumping off of a roof of a house. And so I was like, I'm not jumping from there. There were some people jumping from there, and they were just going feet first. They weren't even trying to climb down. They were just literally standing up on the ledge and then hopping off. And I was like, I'm not doing that. I know my coordination. I'm going to break my leg if I do that. So I start going down to the end zone because I know that that's where you can actually climb over, where there are gates that are closer to the ground. So I do that, but that takes about like 5 minutes, and it's absolutely jam-packed. Like, there were a couple moments when I could not move a single muscle in my body because people were that squished up against me. I felt like I was violating people, and people were violating me as close as we were to each other. Oh my gosh, it was weird. But I eventually got down onto the field, and by then, like, people are already going back up into the stands because I was one of the last people down on the field. I see a couple of my friends and I high-five them, and I see a couple of players and I high-five them, and one of the offensive linemen is up on the ladder that the drum majors get on, and he's conducting the band as they're playing the fight song. And it's just crazy town, and one of the Clemson players is spitting on all of our fans, and there are people getting arrested, which is weird. They only arrested probably 20 people, but it's like they could have arrested everyone if they had enough handcuffs and enough cops, but they just chose to arrest a handful of people for whatever reason. I feel like at that point, just don't arrest anyone, But, what are you going to do? And remember, I'm running on 3.5 hours of sleep at this point. I've been up since 7 in the morning, and it's like 8 p.m. now, and I'm starting to feel it already. But the adrenaline is still rushing, and then once I get back up in the stands, I realize my shirt is gone. Someone stole my shirt. Either someone stole my shirt or it just fell off because of, the friction of people just rubbing up against me. But I had my shirt tucked in my pants because I had my chest painted. And then, it got lost somewhere, and I, followed my tracks everywhere after everyone had left, and my shirt was just gone. So now I'm just walking around without a shirt on, looking like a fool. But it don't matter no more because we just won against the number 9 team in the nation. And it was, probably the best sports experience I've had so far. And I'm really glad that I went because I missed the game where NC State beat Duke a couple years ago because I was studying for a test. Can you believe that? I was studying for a test and I missed the Duke game because, I thought that we were going to lose anyways. And I ended up watching it on TV anyway, so I don't even know how much studying I got done. But I had a test the next morning, and it was actually a retest because the class did so bad on the first test that we had to do it again. And the first test I got 30%. And then the next morning, it ended up getting snowed out anyways. So there was literally no reason for me to be studying that night, and I missed the game. But I did end up going to the bell tower that night, so that was fun. But I definitely missed going to the actual game. So the fact that I got to go to the Clemson game and I almost didn't was such a relief. Like, I'm so glad that I went. And I think that, just for anyone listening that is maybe thinking about which college to go to NC State. If you're a football fan, go to NC State because we have the best fans in the nation, without a doubt. So, yeah, thanks for watching. I'll see you sometime soon, hopefully, but stay safe out there.